Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today we're going to go fairly deep because we're looking at the sort of programming, beliefs and so forth that we probably have primarily unconsciously, but that might limit us or create a vision or a view of the world that without realizing it means that we don't necessarily achieve all that we want to achieve. And I'm filming this video and going to publish it when Pluto has just gone retrograde in 2022. And so this sort of reading, whether you see it in that period of time, which in 2022 is sort of from May to October, if you see it in that time, then it fits with this particular energy, and you can use the energy of Pluto going retrograde, which is a time when a lot of things come to the surface, a lot of things are brought up from the shadow to the light to be considered, and whether or not you transform it, transmute it, let it go, or decide that it is part of you. There's a process of clarity that comes with Pluto when it's used in that way, and when it's going retrograde, it adds an extra dimension of clarity of sight. So I think it's a good energy to do this sort of reading in. Pluto goes retrograde for a particular period of time every year, so this is effectively a timeless reading in as much as if you see it in another year and there's Pluto retrograde, you've got that extra turbocharging. But if you get drawn to it at a time where Pluto isn't retrograde, or you're not sure if it is or isn't, it doesn't really matter that much, and I'm not putting Pluto in the title, I'm just explaining it as the energy of part of the inspiration for the reading now. Because if you are drawn to it at a time when Pluto isn't retrograde, it's spirit saying that you're ready to look at some of these things and to transmute and transform them anyway. So that's the purpose of the reading. We're going to have a look at some of those sort of beliefs that could be there, some of the sort of underlying almost narratives that we have, that we tell ourselves consciously or unconsciously. We'll then have a look with tarot at what could best be brought to the light from that kind of shadowy unconscious level, and then what is created in the light using a couple of tarot decks that are a kind of brother and sister tarot deck to each other, with dark shadowy energy and light energy. Dark is not necessarily as in bad, but just in what is more hidden. And we'll have a look at what is the outcome of that for you. What does it look like in various areas of your life? What supports will you have spiritually for it? How will you get a sense of that power and understanding growing, and how does that all come together? So that's what we're going to do with the readings. I'll just put down the numbers for those that like to choose by numbers. But what I will explain to you is that the choice here is also informed by the fairy tale oracle. So the fairy tale oracle will be used in this reading, and there will be two cards from the fairy tale oracle for each reading. So one of them will be the choice card, and then there's another one that's been randomly, intuitively chosen. I don't know what those are. But the reason that I wanted to use the fairy tale oracle, and why I actually consciously chose some for this, is that I was looking for fairy tales that I think are pretty well known, generally speaking, and which have different areas where programming or shadow elements could be occurring that you could be bringing up to the light to look at. And hopefully that might sort of help you decide, or the imagery may, if you don't choose by numbers. Of course, you can choose any way you like, and you can go to more than one reading. But for pile one, I have Sleeping Beauty. So the sort of energy of the awaiting almost unconsciously for something to come, and a freedom and a liberation and love and so forth. For pile two, there's the Little Mermaid, which is about what we sacrifice for love and other things in life. For pile three, we have Red Riding Hood, which is a real, as it says, rite of passage type of story about coming into who we are and understanding our power. And pile four, we have Bluebeard, which is all about the hidden and the secret and the sort of risks and dangers of looking into that, but also the need to sort of liberate by understanding the truth of something. So it seemed to me these four fairy tales have within their sort of narrative structure something about bringing the shadow to light, or not necessarily the shadow, but the unconscious of the programming and so forth. So that may help you decide which reading to go to, and it will have some of the flavour of the reading. But as I say, this will be also balanced with other oracle cards that give other aspects of the unconscious and the sort of Plutonian world, and at least one other fairy tale oracle. So we'll have a sense about a broader kind of programming and sort of set of beliefs that could be worth looking at. So with that explanation, hopefully you will have enough to decide what reading or readings you want to go to, and when you know what they are, The timestamps, as always, are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, part one, to your reading. So as I said, we've got a second fairy tale oracle card, and these two together I'm looking at as a collective sort of energy of what this could be about. Looking also at some Greek mythology around some of the other elements, and some astrology and other sort of spiritual and sort of like life pathway type of energy as well too, to look at what Spirit would like you to consider as part of Pluto retrograde, or as I say more generally if you've come to this reading when Pluto isn't retrograde. So to me, there's a big thing here about breaking free, possibly from family expectations, family issues, family karma, reclaiming what joy is and reclaiming your individual leadership and space in the world. Why I am saying this is that the Sleeping Beauty story, of course, is about a girl, a princess, who is born, and a particular very powerful witch or fairy is not invited to the christening or whatever process is happening with the story when she is born, and as a result gets very angry and curses her to fall asleep, and she needs to wait for someone to wake her up to then be in her life again. And Thumbelina is about, interesting enough with Demeter and motherhood here, a woman who very much wants to have a child but is finding it difficult to have it, and calls upon, again, sort of fairy magic help. And a child is born which is so tiny, which is Thumbelina, and so different that finding her people and fitting in and being understood is difficult. But her story is about finding her people, her tribe, and so forth. So it's interesting that this connects with the mother. Some of the people who have come here, there may be an issue about looking at your things around family, around whether or not do you want to have a child, what would that actually mean, how does that relate to your own sort of power and so forth. So there could be that energy around what it is it to be a mother, what is it to have a child, some of you may in fact have very unusual children. You may have children who are neurodiverse, for instance, or have something that is different about them and you're trying to help them find their way. So there could be some energies here around these sort of stories. But I think for most of you, it's more about coming into your own creation of yourself and starting to enjoy life and expand. Because these two cards, if you think about it, one is about the search for individuality, and we have opulence here, which is talking about being time to lead. This card talks about you can follow, you can wait for what others sort of can provide to you and all that for a lot of your life, and you can go with the flow. But every once in a while, you actually have to lead, and we have it with Leo. And Leo is about, in a sense, being the king of the jungle. It is about leading out, being seen, being different, being a bit dramatic in some way. And we have the Ascension card here, which is lifting yourself up out of the shadow, out of the programming, so that you can enjoy life and expand. So I feel that these two cards here, the programming we're talking about, is a sort of a combination of what is it to be different, and can you find your tribe, and otherwise do you just have to stick with your family or whatever. Is there something about liberation from that and understanding what is your leadership and bringing your tribe to yourself? But there's also the subtext of Sleeping Beauty is the concept that she is awakened by a kiss. She is awakened by someone else coming and saving her from a situation. And yet these cards all say that you can be your own savior, and you can be the person who defines who you are. And in doing that, you bring in your tribe, your true family. And you are likely, in fact, to have a leadership and almost like a nurturing role to others, because there is a strength in you, in your difference, that maybe at this point in time you're not fully recognizing or not fully establishing. So you shouldn't be waiting on the kiss of the prince to have your expansion and your joy. In fact, you are meant to lead at this point, and what is different about you will nurture others, and that is a process of ascension. But this certainly suggests that on some level you feel as though you are so different or so separate to others that you are waiting for someone to come and wake you up and bring that into being. But this is very much saying this Pluto retrograde time, or as I say, the energy of this reading that's brought you here, is that you are your own leader and you are your own difference. So it's about understanding that we do take this in, we take these stories in, and there is a sense sometimes that we feel we have to be validated by others to therefore get the kiss of the prince, to feel that we are okay, otherwise we're too different. But you're actually meant to be a leader. So given that, let's have a look. We will look at these cards later, but let's have a look with the Lunar Dark Angel Tarot about a little bit more information, anything else that Spirit wants to tell us about what sort of programming you can break yourself free from and what that will bring for you. And then we're going to use the Lunar Light Angel Tarot to look at what is the new you that arises out of that. So firstly with Lunar Dark. Okay, it's interesting that the Empress has come up and we've got Demeter. And we've also got the Queen of Cups. I do think for some of you this has to do with being a parent or thinking about moving from maybe being the child to being a parent, that kind of transition. And what does that mean? And so it may well be that the part of your journey has already taken you through some of this. You've already seen and understood you had to be true to yourself, and you're looking at the world and thinking, yeah, how do I protect my children in this? How do I make sure that they understand this? How do I give them the strength to do it? Because maybe it was a very hard one. Now, that's quite specific, but because we've got the Empress and Demeter, I feel that for some of the people coming here, there is something very literal about either being a parent or about being a leader of others and the nurturing role in it. But I do think you're aware of it, so you're starting to see that role, even though it's coming up with the first line of this, which is what's coming out of the unconscious. You are starting to see that you have an innately nurturing energy. And with the Queen of Cups, highly empathic and very authentic emotionally. So none of this made you inauthentic. It's just that it looks as though that your very authenticity and your very difference made you feel separate, and you've thought, I've just got to wait till someone, as I say, comes along and validates me. But underneath, there's an engine room with you, and this is why we've got the Leo and the opulence here and the ascension. You've been building your skills, building your understanding, building all of that in the material world with the Eight of Pentacles. You may well have studied a lot to understand this. Some of you may have studied things like therapies or psychology or something in that area, either to get a qualification or just out of interest, because you certainly do have a sense of the emotional and the psychological, and you've learnt about that. As a result, you're ready to do this. I think for most of you coming here, even hearing that, maybe you had been waiting on someone else, you're starting to see you don't need to wait on that. This message is the right time for you. You know this, and you're coming out of a sense of limiting yourself in your beliefs to understanding what you bring. So the interesting thing here for me is that the people who've come to this reading, I think, are ready to embrace what is new about them. You've actually done quite a lot of work in this space. So Pluto retrograde at the moment, or the energy around this reading, I think what it does for you is it just gives you more clarity around this, gives you more form, and gives you almost the kind of transformative impetus to do this and to move out into being who you are. And possibly actually what I'm getting that is still a bit missing, and we'll see what happens with the light thing, is that I think you've picked up the bit, I am different and I'm a leader and I have a nurturing role for others and I've got the skills that I need to do it and I can see my path. But the bit in here that isn't yet showing up is the Jupiter and the Dionysus. So the having joy, having fun, enjoying life. It's almost as though there is a risk here that you go from waiting on others to thinking you have to look after everyone else, I'm getting. So it's about getting the balance. It's about understanding that you have the skills to do this, but also to embrace what would make you joyous. So I think there is a subtext to this of saying that you're all over this side of it, but part of this is to remember that you can also make your own joy and you can enjoy yourself. It's not all dealing with sort of generational karma or looking after people or waiting for somebody to understand that you're different. It's also just really, truly enjoying what is different about you. So let's see what Spirit believes you can really bring out to the light and the energy around you when you kind of embrace all the advice here around going into your leadership, going into your nurturing role, your ascension sort of spiritually, but also being allowed to enjoy life. It doesn't all have to be earnest. Let's see what the tarot says about that. Wow, we've got the Empress twice. So you're definitely, I mean, there's definitely some people here, I think, that is about some form of nurturing role. It doesn't have to be literally being a mother or something, but some form of nurturing role. And that is retained through the whole thing. The way that you will lead, the way that you stand out will be about showing this nurturing energy and understanding energy. And I do think many of you may have studied things, therapies, psychology or something in a way that you can really, really help and nurture others in a very, very clear. It's not just you working it out for yourself, but it's you doing it for others. And it's very, very creative with the Knight of Wands. Knight of Wands also sometimes means things like moving home and so forth. So for some of you, this may be a separation out from your own home and your mother looking after you to being your own nurturer and being out in the world. For some of you, it may be very literal, or leaving sort of where you're living at the moment for a work thing, or to go on a journey of discovery or something like that, maybe traveling. But I do think there's also something highly creative in this. And certainly anybody who is wanting to be a parent, there's a lot of energy to suggest that everything is lining up for this. But I like the look of the Knight of Wands because I feel like that's picking up Dionysus and Jupiter. I think that's picking up having some joy, because one of your things is that you hold yourself under very strict regulation. You really do have a high degree of responsibility, which is why you're coming across so strongly as a leader. But it's interesting because what that does, we have two aces, which is a blessing. It says that both in a new way of thinking and a new way of creating and being in the world, that energy is there, but it's a little bit suppressed by your emotional pragmatism because we have the Seven of Cups reversed. And with the Seven of Cups reversed, I always feel like it is the very pragmatic thing. And sometimes that's exactly what we need in life. We do need to be pragmatic emotionally. Your issue is whether you become too pragmatic emotionally and lose the joy. So I think there's still a little bit of that. And I think Spirit is saying that you need to allow your belief structure with the Ace of Swords, a new belief structure to come out, not a sort of just simply stepping from I'm different, I'm waiting for somebody to like me, to I'm going to look after everybody else who's different, but also to allow yourself to say, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to, as I say, be very earnest about it. So there's all the potential for that, and an enormous creative potential if you want to do something creatively. But you do have to think about whether or not this feels a bit hard won. It feels like you came to realize this. You came to realize that no one was going to come and rescue you, that you in fact had to rescue yourself. And now I feel like you feel that you have to rescue others. So Spirit is saying don't be so hard on yourself about that. Don't be so sort of material and pragmatic that you lose the opportunity of the new way of looking at things that is more holistic, that is both about embracing difference, diversity, but also enjoying life. So that seems to be the programming pattern to break and to think about, so that you can bring in this great creativity and great joy, because that's one of the things that Spirit is saying you're meant to have. So the next part of the reading was there are 3 cards from 3 different decks that have people from history that represent different sorts of energy. So the love oracles, the music oracles, and the success oracles. So the love oracles card is meant to be an energy to show something that you could develop into when you move into the light phase, when you use this energy and you go through the transformation around love. The music is around creativity, and there's a lot around creativity for you. And then the success oracles is around career, money, and that kind of thing. So let's see what we get. Wow, Oscar Wilde. All right. Jimi Hendrix. Estee Lauder. Okay. So yes, there's something very creative in you, very creative with these 3 characters, because they're all very creative in their different ways. And you would expect the music oracles to be creative, but in the sense of the different other oracles here, they may or may not have been. So there's definitely something there about being individualistic, ahead of your time a bit with Jimi Hendrix. Around creative things, you can bring in something new, and you are very, very unique. And I think you suffered for being unique in the beginning you felt different in a way that didn't work, but you started to understand what you can bring in for the world. And there's a lot of electric energy. This is why the Ace of Swords is there. And it's important not to keep it reversed. It's important to let that energy out, because Jimi Hendrix was very electric, was very immediate and future focused. Around love, Oscar Wilde is an interesting thing, because he, of course, was someone who suffered from being different for his love nature in the time that he was in. He was literally jailed for simply loving differently. It's a terrible thing. Oscar is one of my heroes. I get very upset whenever I think about his story. So I think this is saying that there is something different around your love. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't necessarily be about preferences or whatever, but you are very individual. And who you love, you need to be able to embrace the joy of that and embrace who that truly is, because it's also part of your creative brilliance, because he was creatively amazing. Very, very brilliant mind, very, very strong mind. But if you use this emotional energy too pragmatically, if he'd been really pragmatic about the society he lived in, he may well have avoided jail, but he is legendary now, and his work is legendary, and he understood the social side of things and so forth. So there's something in this for you around love, around being true to who you are and being prepared to do what it takes to have joy. Because you are protected. You won't end up like Oscar did. We're in a different time now. But there's something there, again, about difference for many of you, I think. And then Estee Lauder around success. Of course, she is sort of a cosmetics queen, incredibly brilliant businesswoman. Like if you're using the Empress Demeter energy around business, bringing into something that's very good for the divine feminine, for beauty, for fashion, all of those sorts of things. So there's an energy there around creativity that is about beauty and difference and style and individual style for you. So I think that Spirit is saying when you really embrace your leadership and your joy in it, you can love as you wish, you will be ahead of your time, and you will build something that is truly beautiful. So that's really lovely. So let's have a look at what kind of support you can have for this transformation. So there's two different decks I wanted to use. One, because I'm Australian, there's a Wild Wisdom of Australia deck, which is using animal totems. So animal totems from Australia for you. And then we're also going to use the Chibi Angel deck for what archangels are helping you in this time. So firstly, a couple of animal totems for you and some more information and what they can provide and support you with as you go through this process. So we have Possum, the trickster. Okay, so this is I think trying to get you into the fun area. I think Possum is with you to say you can have fun with this, and you're very clever. Oscar Wilde was very clever. Jimi Hendrix was ahead of his time. Estee Lauder, as a business scion, it was ahead of her time as well too. I think Possum is here to try and get you out of the heavier end of this. You will have a leadership role. You are different, and that's why that's the case. But you can also have a bit of fun. And when necessary, you can understand the social mores that you're in a pragmatic way, but in a way that allows you to also enjoy life. Okay, and one other animal totem for you. Dragonfly, evolve. Yeah, and this picks the ascension. There is something truly evolutionary in this time for you. And Dragonfly connects you also, I think, and there is something about family here, ancestors and so forth, connects you with those that have gone before, connects you with the energies of those that have been different before, both in your own family and I think, the Oscar Wildes of the world, those sorts of people. You are part of a kind of a lineage on that level, if that makes sense. Okay, let's have a look at what archangel energy is around you. Metatron, transformation. Okay, transformation, evolve, ascend. There's a highly spiritual thing to this, but I do feel that you are doing it in the material world, and you're doing it to bring other people with you. And this is also, don't get so head in the clouds that you don't enjoy yourself. You're here for a reason. And we have Gabriel, which is about purpose. So I feel that like Metatron, and it's interesting, Oscar Wilde, writer, Metatron is the divine scribe. And so I think there's a sense of writing your own story rather than being the programming of other things. It's sort of real aha moment. It's probably why I had the sense with the first line of tarot that you're already on this journey, that this will resonate if you've come to the right reading, because you're already starting to write your story. And this is partly with Gabriel, which is prophecy and being ahead of your time. So there is a part of you that is ahead of your time, being able to connect that to purpose and to the heart with the moon. You know, it's like the one issue in all this, I think you're a very caring, nurturing person, but you do need to care and nurture for yourself, and you do need to connect your heart, not become too much the controller of things and not so much the enjoyer of them. So I think that comes out a number of times. Let's have a look at what power energy with color goddess cards you can come into as you use this advice from Spirit. So we have Scarlet, intensity, motivation, passion. I'm going to put this over with purpose and with how you're evolving. So your passion is important. Do not think that that is somehow unworthy or not acceptable in some way. What is passionate within you is important, and it connects to your purpose. And another card, purple, royalty, nobility, prominence. Yeah, you're meant to be known. You're meant to be a bit of a queen. I mean, we've got Demeter and 2 Empress cards. You're meant to lead out on something. It's very, very clear, that opulence as well. And there is a lineage to this. There's something about a lineage with you. Whether it's in your family or whether it's sort of things from past life, there's something about that. So to finish off, I want to get a card to tell you what might be some signs you would see when you're really starting to sort of come through this and emerge as the potential that you have. And then we're going to look at some astrology and chakra energy just to synthesize it all. So what would be a sign for you? Lovers. Okay, so for many of you, this might be, I mean, the Sleeping Beauty did get the kiss of the prince. That doesn't mean, as I say, you have to wait on that. You lead out and you find your own people, but it could bring a major relationship in. This could be the key to enjoying yourself. So partly what might be being said here is that you move into a leadership role that draws the right person, and then you actually can enjoy the love. And that's why we had a bit of advice about don't be so pragmatic about that or so focused on everything you're trying to do that you miss out on enjoyment yourself. Beyond that, you may see lovers around, you may hear songs about love. There could be any of those sort of things when you're thinking and heading in the right direction that could be a sign for you. Okay, so to close out, I'm just going to pull some astrology energy around your transformation, and then we'll use the Astro Chakra cards just to synthesize the whole thing. So some astrology for you, pile 1. Capricorn, Aquarius, sextile. So we'll have a look at what planets are sextile. But Capricorn and Aquarius, this is the Estee Lauder business person. Aquarius feels to me very much like Jimi Hendrix. So the shocker than you, the bigger picture stuff. It could be saying in a business level, you might do something with, artificial intelligence or with sort of philosophy and so forth in some way, or spiritual things on a kind of a big picture level. But it is also the new, the different, the quirky, the original and so forth. But there is a leadership role. It's just saying it again. There's something in the material world that you can do with this, with your difference. And it will be easier than you think with sextile, but let's see what the planets are involved in that. Pluto, okay, that came straight out. So this is about transformation. We're looking at this, probably most people are looking at this in Pluto retrograde. So Pluto is very, very important, bringing the things up from the depths. Wait till we get another planet. Pluto is definitely wanting to come out because it's taking a while to find another planet here. Pluto and Mars, yeah. You are meant to lead. This is picking up the Leonian stuff, the fire energy, the creativity, all of those sort of things. You can be motivated. You are someone who is motivated and energized by change. So that's why you were ready. This is why it felt like you were ready right from the beginning. But you're always on the cause and you're always going through the change and the action. I think that's also why Spirit's saying don't forget to enjoy yourself. And I think for many of you, if you aren't already in a relationship may come along to remind you to enjoy yourself as well. So let's just get 3 Astro Chakra cards to finish off the reading and synthesize the message for you. Throat chakra. Heart chakra, yeah, it's important. Don't forget your heart. Yeah, don't forget your heart. We get 2 heart chakras. Wow. And with Pluto and Uranus in the heart chakra. So this is like having Pluto and Uranus conjunct. So there is definitely something about love here. There is definitely how you love it. It's love on all sorts of levels, romantic love, passionate love, love of family, love of children, love of your tribe, whatever it might be. Hugely transformative energy around all of this. And I think it's in you understanding that your difference is what will make you lead and nurture others, not what you have to wait for somebody else to validate. And that's partly about getting the structure in how you communicate with the world. With Saturn in the throat chakra, this is about you taking authority, you understanding who you are, you communicating your truth, because you can transform not only yourself but many other people. You're meant to lead out on a group who are different like you, and they may be different in different ways to you, but it's like you become a symbol of difference, and how that is an empowering thing. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 1. I hope you use the energies that are around at the moment to come into this leadership, but I also hope you enjoy yourself at the same time. And I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So we have the 2 fairy tale oracle cards, the one that potentially drew you to the reading, and another one, some Greek mythology, some astrology, and some other sort of spiritual cards to give a sense about what might be the programming here and the transformation that's possible. And I feel for you that there is a programming here about whether or not you are, you have to give all for love and sacrifice all for love, because that's kind of the story of the Little Mermaid, because that is the only way that you would be worthy of love in some way, that you are somehow not going to draw people in without that, and you need the assistance of others, the assistance of magic to allow your sacrifice. Or in the case of Fair, Brown and Trembling, this story is about 3 daughters, one who's called Trembling because she doesn't have a lot of self-confidence, but a fairy godmother effectively gives her a beautiful gown and makes her feel better about herself and so forth. And it's getting assistance, divine assistance, but in both of these it's using divine magic to give enough or be enough for love in some way. And I feel like that's not just love for you. I think it might be in general in life, because with Icarus and Nike here, it feels like on one level you do know that you could be successful, that you could really lead out the chariot, because that's what Nike did. Nike was in fact the charioteer, that's hard to say, for Zeus. So in great battles with the Titans and so forth, she led Zeus out to victory. And so you could take that sort of a role, you know it, but you worry about whether you're good enough, whether you are in fact putting too much faith in yourself. And like Icarus, you could get close to the sun and then have your wings melting and so forth. But there is something fiery about you with Sagittarius, and something that is bigger than just you, something that doesn't require the assistance and magic of others, or the validation of others, or that you sacrifice yourself to others, that in fact you can bring out your special gifts because you do have them. And some of it is about love, beauty and so forth. Many of you are probably very beautiful to look at, but you may not realize it. You might be, the sort of people that people don't tell you that because they think you should know it, and so therefore you're not hearing it, but it's very true. And you're kind of maybe a little bit shy and facing, and you sort of feel like, to be worthy, I have to give a lot and I have to get divine assistance. But this is saying you really have what you need. You could be Nike, definitely, and you could also bring love into your life, and you could expand yourself into the sort of fiery and sort of like creative areas. Some of this is connected to family programming. So it may be that some of you were in families where there were siblings and you were felt that you were the lesser of the siblings in some way. Or you are feeling that you're being held up as an example compared to the rest of your family in some way. Or it might be that there's very strong ancestral sort of cultural elements for you that are informing what you feel you should be in the world, what your status should be in the world, what you would have to give to get what you want. But this opportunity for understanding the programming is to see that you don't need divine assistance. That's you actually have all the skills you need. You can lead Zeus out to victory, and you are less inexperienced than you think. So you don't need divine assistance to find love. You don't need divine assistance to bring your gifts out into the world. And you have probably many spiritual and other gifts that have come through ancestral lines that you can own and be proud of. So this is very much a message of don't sacrifice too much and don't underestimate yourself. These are the programming that you have that you tend to do. It's the underlying sort of thing of feeling like I'm always going to need the help of others. I'm never quite good enough. I can't be out in the world, but you actually are. You're being your own harshest critic. The rest of the world would respond to you more like Nike, but you're seeing yourself more like Icarus. So you're sort of like the uber opposite of a narcissist, to be honest. You're someone who really doesn't see what they have and expects that they're never quite at the level and that others would be needed. Whereas, like people who are more likely to be Icarus, kind of think that they're bigger and more powerful than they actually are. You're sort of the opposite of that. So the programming you need to break is this sense that you're not good enough, because in fact you have everything that you need and you've got it in your lineage, but you've got it just within you as well too. And your loving nature and caring nature is a big part of it, but so is your creativity. So what we also had under this card were cards from 3 different decks that use people from modern day and history for different sort of elements. So we have the love oracles to look at an energy of transformation once you sort of look at this and bring it to the surface that could occur as an example around love, around creativity with the music oracles, and around career with the success oracles. So for love, you have Plato. Wow, okay. For creativity, Tina Turner. And for, okay, Elon Musk for career. Okay, so this is telling us something. Like, number one, you're very smart. You're very smart. If you think you have to sort of sacrifice everything and you're not good enough on an intelligence level, like, that is so wrong. You are really smart. And maybe almost too smart for your own good around love. There's, like with Plato, there's a sense of philosophy around love. So it's almost as though you've got an idea about it, and because you're so smart, you've convinced yourself of it. The good news is the Platonic method, just like the Socratic method, is about questioning, asking, and working through what actually is the truth. So I think if you took yourself through a thing of thinking, what is the logic? Should I sacrifice? Am I not good enough? When you start to look at what is going on in the world and who you really are, you will start to be able to convince this brilliant mind you have that in fact you are all that in a box of chocolates, because you really are, but you're not seeing it about yourself. So there's something there. But it certainly also suggests to me that once you really realize that you're good enough, you're going to have incredibly high standards around love and who you let into your life, which I think is a good thing, because I suspect that some of this programming, consciously or unconsciously on you, was competing with you. You will understand and want the meeting of the minds of an equal, so that that balance is there. Tina Turner is really interesting creatively for you. Like, people might have thought when she first started out, when she was with Ike, that she was very much under the thumb, very much having to sacrifice all for relationships, the second person, so to speak, but she came into her own big time. And if she worried about whether she was Icarus, she became Nike. So I think on a creative level, this is a really beautiful example of exactly who you are. And then we have career-wise Elon Musk. So this is the other part, like the brilliant mind, future-focused, really building what is new, and not sort of taking any prisoners in doing it as well too. So I think there's a real energy around your career of being able to bring in the new and having gifts to do that. And some people say, of Elon Musk, he's like Icarus. People often think he's going to fail, but he doesn't tend to. I mean, all entrepreneurs will fail sometimes, but he succeeds more than he fails, that's for sure. So, I think it's just a kind of a back yourself on a career level. There's a lot of expansion that you can do, Nike and Elon Musk together in particular. Okay, so let's have a look with tarot. So we're going to start with the Lunar Dark Angel Tarot. So this is around what else Spirit wants to tell you about this programming and what needs to be brought up to the light. Then we're going to use the Lunar Light Tarot to see what can arise once you do free yourself from that kind of programming. Okay, so for the start, there's quite a bit around material things here. So I think quite a lot of what you feel you have to sacrifice or whether you're good enough is in the material world. So it's interesting you get someone like Elon Musk as what you could move into. It is again saying back yourself. There is a sort of feeling where you feel with the 6 of coins here that either you need a benefactor, which again is this sort of divine assistance, or that, somehow everything has to be really balanced. And at its best, really balanced resource-wise is good, and being generous yourself. In fact, you're probably very generous yourself with this sort of energy, but possibly, not expecting that generosity back. So I think there is a sort of message here to have expectations of equality, of a fair exchange of energy, because at the moment with the Two of Wands here, that's not necessarily happening. It's sort of, this is kind of partly this programming of I've got to wait for someone who's bigger and more powerful to come along and sort of like validate me in some way and help me, particularly materially. But in actual fact, with the Eight of Coins here, you've got what you need. You've got the qualifications, the study, the knowledge, the skills. You've got all of that. This is the point. It should be a generous both ways, rather than feeling that you're going to need assistance always. You don't really need that. You're just not rating what you've put your effort into for some reason. With the Three of Pentacles reverse, it's like you've got all of that, but you're not yet seeing how that's the foundation to you. And you're very open-hearted. And this is partly, there's a lot around love for this as well. So I feel as though, again, you feel like you're waiting on sort of some divine manifestation to bring in love. But you're likely to do it once you really own who you are, particularly materially. Because there definitely is a sign of victory around love as well for you that's possible once you cease to think it relies on some sort of magical intervention. So, it's interesting. I would be saying to you, if you're sort of someone who, is thinking law of attraction and manifestation on that level, that's possibly not the best thing for you to be doing, because it almost implies that, again, like the divine needs to sort of move with you. It's more just really looking at who you are in the material world and what you could achieve and so forth, and how you could establish yourself, that I think will actually make you understand that it's not so much the divine that needs to sort of come along and assist you, that you've got everything you need, that you are very much lovable, very much able to be successful and so forth. So let's have a look at what happens once you've sort of freed yourself of that kind of programming. So it's really interesting. We've got some very similar cards, but they're now working and connecting with different things. Except here, we've got the Eight of Pentacles twice. So it's definitely saying part of the key to you breaking this programming is understanding your own skill set, understanding how qualified and how skilled you are, and then using that for yourself. That's definitely there. I think when you really come to realize this, you're going to have a very keen eye to social justice and to how resources are shared and so forth, and a very practical way of doing this. I think that you will become a little bit of a fighter for, as I say, social justice, economic justice, that kind of thing. You'll have seen that there are maybe people that have been around you that have controlled you a bit too much around resourcing or around what you believe was necessary. You almost see, this feels to me, King of Pentacles reverse feels like the Emperor's new clothes. It's like, to me, you realize that some of the people that you thought you had to wait for their assistance and their approval really don't have any clothes. Like it's not what it appears. And you do have, I think your first reaction to some of this may be, gee, this is unjust. The way the world works is unjust. But I think that you will move into using your skills to be more authentic, to have a more authentic connection. And as I say, be like Nike leading Zeus into victory. It will require some courage of you, but you definitely have the capacity and the generosity of spirit to do it. And it is going to manifest first around career, I think, for you. Career or money in some way, resources in some way. And I feel like there's a political or a social cause sort of energy around you as well. But I think it will bring love as well. And it comes partly from your open heart. Your open-hearted generosity is very real. It's like you get rid of the programming that suggests that you're not good enough, and you then, all that sort of generosity of spirit that you have actually starts to become the victory, rather than being used like, oh, I have to rely on others and divine assistance and so forth, as I say. So that's very interesting and very, very good. Yeah, it's a very good feeling I get from this. I'm sort of trying to think of the right word, and I can't think of anything that's really better than good, really. So what we're going to look at now is some guides, totems, or whatever to help you in this process of realizing this and freeing yourself from the programming. So we're starting with a couple of animal totems from Australia. Then we're going to get a couple of archangels. So for you, we have Greater Bilby, Dark Night of the Soul. So there is something, this is, I think, because when you emerge, you sort of realize what wasn't right. I feel as though that you do need to go into and understand on a great depth the sort of thing where you have abrogated some of your own power and so forth by not feeling good enough, and what created that. And some of you, it might be from family things, sibling rivalry, that sort of stuff, as I said at the beginning. But the Greater Bilby here is to help you through that process and to help you realize all that you have, particularly materially, like your skills are off the charts. So, but you probably will go through that process. It probably isn't the easiest thing. It's like you have to let go of thinking someone will come along and reward you for your sacrifice and validate you, and you validate yourself. But it's understanding your gifts. You are so talented. So let's have a look at another totem for you. Kingfisher, digging deep. So yeah, you will go deep with this. But see, this is part of your skill, and you're very grounded. You're someone who can do this. Some people who would be confronted with what you're really looking at, which is letting go of a whole bunch of programming that kind of put you in a box, would find this very difficult. But you actually have the strength and the skill to do it. Let's see what archangels are around you. Michael, so there you go, the strength of God. And Sandalphon. Okay, so Michael is here to give you the strength to look into your inner beliefs and to release yourself. I have every confidence people who come to Pole 2 are going to actually arise from this victorious, absolutely. And Sandalphon is going to let you understand your potential, really, so that you know it is you, it's within you. It doesn't need the more powerful person, the divine intervention, or any of those sort of things. I mean, you'll get divine support, but this is not about you needing them for a step up. This is about you realizing your potential, your gifts. It's really powerful stuff. So let's see what that might look like a bit in terms of powerful color energy for you. We have burgundy, ambition and respect. Ambition, honor and respect. Yeah, have ambition. Have ambition. You are so skilled. Like seriously, you are so skilled. You are meant to be victorious. You are meant to awaken your ambition, your gifts, your abilities. And indigo, discovery, intuition, perception. Really sort of seeing, because you can go deep. You're very spiritual, very spiritually attuned. You have, very strong spiritual gifts. That's all going to help you. It's part of your gifts. Like you have the material gifts, but you also have spiritual gifts. Your intuition's spot on. And that's what's going to help you navigate through digging deep and going into the dark night of the soul. So let's see, once you've sort of done that, what kind of sign you might get or see that you're on the right track. Hands. Okay. So I think this is definitely a kind of a sign. I think that what you will see, you might see readings like this where you see hands all the time, or you might see sort of jewelry being shown on hands, or you might see people working with their hands in some way. It could also be saying that some of you are very good at working with your hands, very skilled at drawing or design or building things or whatever. That could be there, that could be part of it. But there's something around seeing hands and people doing handiwork, that kind of thing, that I think is a sign for you, a kind of synchronistic sign that you're really starting to understand your gifts. Because if you think about it, hands are doing something around a gift. They're expressing something around gifts. So I think that connects very well for you. So to bring it all together, we're going to have some astrology energy over this time, and then we'll use the Astro Chakra cards to synthesize it for you. So astrology over this time. Saturn, first house, conjunction, we'll have a look at the planets, Capricorn. Yeah, a lot of you, this is around business and material or whatever. A lot of you, I think, can be very victorious around your career and so forth, using your gifts and so forth, and make money for it and be really seen for it in the world. And these are the two seen in the world cards, houses. So the first house is about your personality, what you bring to the table, what is uniquely you. And the 10th house which is what Capricorn rules, is about, vocation, career and so forth. So there's a lot of that around that for you. And it's not been easily won with Saturn. a lot of wisdom, but it's taken time, and this will take time to some degree, but it's very solid. The foundations are there, the structure is there, and there is some easeful energy probably with the conjunction. It sort of depends on what the planets are, so we'll look at what the planets are for you. Pluto, so this is the transformative energy. Pluto and Mars, that's really interesting. I've shuffled these cards. Pluto and Mars came out in another reading for a different aspect. So conjunction, this is definitely showing high degrees of power. You are very, very powerful actually. With Pluto and Mars conjunct, your capacity for transformation is off the charts. Your capacity to be the victorious one is off the charts. The only thing you need to watch out for with that is getting in balance the transformation and the ambition, because they're very, very powerful planets. And that might be why you worry sometimes with Icarus, like, am I ready for this? But at its best, when you really have a clarity of what your ambition is and you know what you need to transform, nothing can stop you, pile 2. Okay, so let's have a look at just 3 Astro Chakra cards just to bring it all together for you. Okay, the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the third eye chakra. So intuition, definitely sort of saying what's your psychic ability. It's definitely there. Don't doubt it. You're very much in the material world and the world of power, but don't doubt your psychic ability. So we have something that's really about you at a core, and it's interesting. We have the first house. This is about who you are in the world and surviving in the world and thriving in the world. And it's interesting that we have Saturn as well too. So I feel that this is saying the organizational principle here. That's the organizing who you want to be in the world and how you're shown in the world. And that's part of your skill. You know, you have these very material skills and able to sort of, formulate framework structures, make things work. Creativity allows you to bring them into being and connect them with moon, with your heart in some way, and the instincts and the intuition. But it's interesting because one thing feels very much in the body and connecting with others with the moon, with instincts creatively. But when we're talking about the intuition, there's a kind of degree of detachment with Uranus there. So it's like being able to get right into the core of it and connect with others emotionally for what you're creating, but being also able to be a bit detached and step back and see what the bigger picture is, which is, I think, a very good way of balancing these sort of energies, actually, because Pluto feels like the moon energy there, and then Uranus gives the detachment to some degree around Mars to get that into balance. So I think you're meant to be very much a kind of a leader, probably something in kind of, community activism or politics or the material world as a business person or something like that, somewhere where your understanding of yourself and your actual very, very open heart can actually also be materially manifest and can show that that can work. And it's your power. It's not magic. It's not the divine. I mean, the divine will obviously have given you your gifts and so forth and be wanting to see you thrive. That's sort of a given, but this is about you understanding what you have. So I hope that that resonates for you, pile 2. I hope that you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So we have the 2 fairy tale cards here. So the one that potentially drew you to this reading, and the second card, as I said, which would be in this deck, some Greek mythology, some astrology, and some other spiritual cards to just get a sense of what the programming may be. And this is interesting. I feel that the people who've come to this reading, if you've come to the right one, this has a lot to do with love, particularly romantic or passionate love, what it takes to have love, and what it is to feel safe, and the transition, the transformation from maybe innocence or separation or celibacy or whatever it might be into a sort of passionate connection, and what that means to do it in a wise and lasting sort of way. So connecting romantic love, creativity and so forth. But there is a kind of a fear in this as well. This is very interesting. Red Riding Hood, if Red Riding Hood drew you to this reading, quite apart from anything else, it is a story about rites of passage. It is a story about coming into adulthood. It is a highly sexualized story in many ways. It's about whether or not we can trust those instincts, whether we know enough. It's about the shadow. It's about predatory behaviors, all of those sort of things. And you also have the Snow Queen, which is almost like the polar opposite, because here we have Red Riding Hood in the shadow, in the forest, in the darkness, having to try and protect herself, having to be careful about everything. Who do you trust and so forth? How do you go through this particular rite of passage and come through it strongly in yourself? Then we have the Snow Queen, which is the fairy story that the movie Frozen was sort of loosely based on. And it's all about a character whose loyalty and love unfreezes somebody else. So there's a sort of sense of the true love, the true heart can unfreeze a situation. So it feels like the programming you're trying to deal with is a combination of, I want to be able to love openly, I want to cultivate love, which this card talks about. It talks about if you felt like you were alone, to sort of look at love in all its forms, and that draws love to you, and so forth, wanting to do that and wanting to unfreeze yourself or unfreeze other people around you. Maybe even if you're around a relationship at the moment, you feel the person won't connect with you, to unfreeze that and to bring them back and to heal them in some way. So there's that side, but there's also that side that says it's a scary world to be in all of this. Like you can become the prey. You have to understand people. What is the cost and the transition of this? What's the shadow that I'm trying to deal with? I do feel many people who've come to this, might be in sort of twin flame or divine union type of situations, or very complex relationships, or have been alone for a long time because of this sort of mix between wanting to love but being afraid of what love might bring. Maybe some of you have been through relationships that were very heavy and took their toll and have made you be in this, or it might be programming from childhood about what it is to be passionate and so forth, and you have to be wise and so forth. It's interesting with Metis. Metis is a Greek goddess of great wisdom, and what happened is Zeus married her to get her wisdom, but then he decided he wanted to keep her forever, so he swallowed her and she lived in him. She's actually the mother of Athena. Hence, Athena springing fully formed from the forehead of Zeus is because Metis, in a sense, was the mother within him. But there's, again, it's almost like even with wisdom, the connection that can exist in relationships can be overwhelming and all-consuming. And with Vesta, there's a sort of sense of, yes, but I also want to keep the home fires burning. I want to use the wisdom, and be sacred with it and so forth. And with the fifth house, I want the romance and so forth, but it's a bit scary. So there's definitely this sort of sense that you have programming about love, I would say. And it may then manifest in other parts of your life, but you really want to be wise about it. You don't want to get tricked by a predator, but on the other hand, you don't want to sort of like make it so that you never have love because you're never really sure whether the shadow is lurking. You want the fun and the romance, but you also want the long-standing. There is a real issue for you around this that you have an opportunity to balance out and understand. I think the key is the Snow Queen. I think this story talks about love being the thing that unfreezes and fixes the situation. So it's understanding that the purity of the heart and then using the wisdom that you actually have. You have far more wisdom than you're giving yourself credit for, means that it doesn't have to be as scary, but something's made you feel that it is. So let's get a little bit more information with the cards here. So these are 3 cards from different oracles showing different sort of famous people throughout life in the different areas to give me a sense of what you could bring into your life if you deal with this particular programming and release it. The love oracles around love, the music oracles around creativity, and the success oracles around your career and being in the world. So the love oracles, we have Matahari, okay. The music, we have Maria Calais, okay. And the career, Steven Spielberg, okay. So Matahari again. So around love, there's this sort of sense that seduction is there and it can be very powerful, and you indeed could use seduction and could be the predator rather than the prey if you want. So you certainly could use your wisdom and understanding to navigate the more complex relationships. That's certainly there. The thing about Matahari is that she knew she could do it. And I think this is the key thing. It's like understanding the purity of your heart, but also your wisdom. That combination means that you will not be likely to fall prey. Just like Red Riding Hood outsmarted the wolf, so can you. And you can go through these transitions confident because you have that innate intelligence about it all. But it's understanding that and living more into your power and your wisdom and less into the fear of it. Creatively, Maria Calais, of course, is one of the world's greatest opera singers. A high degree of perfectionism. There is an issue here, I think, around your creativity when you want the joy of it and so forth. Again, about how perfect is it? Can I be perfect? Could I somehow fall prey to that which is less than perfect? Because there's a lot about that with her. So I think there is a little bit of a thing here about back yourself creatively as well. Don't sort of feel again like it's a shadowy, difficult world. And for any of you who want to work in the creative arts, and you may well with Steven Spielberg as the example there around your career sort of side of things, back yourself, as I say, understand that it isn't, you can find the perfect, wise, balanced way of dealing with things in this creative world. Steven Spielberg for career, sort of like the world is your oyster, the universe is your oyster. You can create, anything that you can imagine can come into being and can be very successful. It's highly imaginative. But see, this is one of the things for you, I've got to say, because highly imaginative people can go in one of two directions and sometimes both at the same time, and they kind of pull against each other, so to speak. That great imagination can make you understand your wisdom and make you feel, as I say, like the universe is your oyster and you can do what you want. Equally, it can make you imagine and catastrophize. One of the reasons in the tarot that the sword suit is so much more difficult than the others is because it's the realm of the mind and the imagination. So when we get to the difficult cards, it's almost like it's on steroids because we can imagine things being far worse than they actually are. So there's something in this. There's something in, you're right on some level to know and to be able to navigate this, that you need to have really high skills and you need to understand the environment and you need to, I'm not sugarcoating this. It's not like I'm saying everything is love and puppies and don't think that there are these issues. It's more that you need to back the fact that you have the wisdom to do it. So let's see what else, using the Lunar Dark Angel Tarot, what else is in the shadow, or a little bit more information around this that Spirit thinks would be helpful for you to know. Okay. So I do think many of you have probably had a difficult relationship, and I suppose most people do at some point. That's probably not terribly profound to say, but I do think for you, there's been something, or you've seen it happen. There's a reason that you kind of see the shadow around this. You might have seen it in the relationships of your parents potentially, or close friends if it didn't happen to you. But you feel reluctant to let go emotionally. And even to let some of that go, it's almost like if it imprinted on you, it's very hard for you to let it go and just move on from it. You feel like it becomes a template for you. So you sit over on this side rather than over on this side. And that makes you feel unbalanced. It makes you feel that you can't control the outcome. So it really does have a feeling like you almost avoid relationship maybe, or avoid really deep relationship because you're not sure if you can control it. And if you unfroze yourself and then found yourself in the forest, Red Riding Hood and the wolves, that would be very distressing to you. There's a battle within you about what you want passionately, creatively, and in love and so forth. You also feel a little bit like you're a bit unconventional or a bit of the dark. You might even feel that your nature could be too predatory. And I don't mean that in a kind of really bad sense. I just mean that you may feel that when you fall almost obsessively and it's different and so forth. So again, you've kind of frozen yourself out rather than getting into the shadow and those realms. So, but Spirit is actually saying that releases you from certain things. If you can accept that side of yourself, you can release yourself from all the should do's that you seem to otherwise carry. And it might free up the energy between you and other people. It's almost like that you've got almost a template of what you think it should be like, and if it doesn't fit that, then it must be in this sort of side of things. It's almost like Metis and Vesta got together and did a checklist, and if the checklist doesn't work, then it's somehow in this area, and that's not necessarily the case. So it's just sort of understanding that you have more wisdom to be drawn to the right people, you have less need to fear, and if you have been through something difficult, you've learnt from that. You're not the sort of person who's going to repeat the same mistakes if that's what you're worried about. Okay, so let's have a look at what light energy we have when you've sort of got this into balance, because that's really all it is. I don't think it's saying don't be careful, but it is saying don't let that freeze you, you know, like cultivate love, cultivate what love looks like to you. So let's see what light energy we have once you've gone through this sort of transformation. Okay, so what Spirit is saying is don't give yourself a hard time, because you are going to have to do this in a process, because this is a very strong imprint and you have a very strong understanding of the shadow. And you are very wise, so you're very much in your mind. You're going to, first of all, have to convince your mind about this. Like often when you look at a reading like this, you would say, well, obviously, you know, opening your heart and loving and doing all that sort of stuff, you know, and trusting yourself will, you know, help. But this is a very, very deeply ingrained thing. And so you're going to have to convince your mind to let go of the cynicism around it. So the Queen of Swords reversed, you can be too strict on yourself and others. The Ten of Swords reversed, that suggests you're coming out of this, so you are coming out of it and you're coming out of the intellectual conflict, but you are going to have to convince your mind. So it isn't a case where you could just go, I'm just going to shut off my mind and not think about this. You're not able to do that. You're someone who really, it does have to make sense. So Spirit is saying that's fine. It's fine to rely on the wisdom side of things to get it in balance, to convince your mind. Once you start to do that, you know, you feel more comfortable because you're pragmatic emotionally, but you can be emotional because you feel that you're pragmatic about it. And then you can come out of this sort of sense of isolation and always searching within. It's very much a process for you of understanding this on a psychological level, on an intellectual level, and so forth, because you are more aware of this than most people are, actually. And you're not necessarily wrong. It's just that it's not everywhere. It's not going to be every relationship. But your mind has to know that this is worth the unfreezing. And, you know, you have to use Metis's sort of like wisdom and so forth to do that. That's going to be important for you if you're to process this energy. Okay, so let's have a look at some supports for you. So we're starting firstly with a couple of animal totems from Australia, so Australian animal totems that could help this energy for you. We have wombat, inner child. Yeah, this is probably something that has come very much from youth. It might be something that you saw in patterns in your family or something like that. You do have to, like the wombat will be there to protect the inner child, the one that is frightened in the dark and so forth, to allow the mind to come out and actually make you feel more comfortable with things. And we also have tawny frogmouth, which is an owl. Synchronicity. Okay, so there's going to be signs and symbols for you as this is working through, which is probably good because that will work with your mind. And we are actually going to look at one point in this reading about what signs could be telling you that you're really starting to emerge from the transformative thing and free yourself from the programming. Let's also have a look at what archangel energy can help you. Sandalphon, completion. And Zavki, or meditation. Okay. So again, mind, spirit. So it's not just mind, actually. It's in your spirit, meditation, intuition, all that sort of thing. That's where you're going to get to the wisdom. That's the balance and so forth. And Zavki is giving you that. And the structure. So you need that. You do need... You're very, very smart and you're very, very of the mind. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to be aware that's the key for you. And meditation kind of connects your mind with your spirit and quietens the mind enough to allow itself to be convinced and allow itself to see beyond just the sort of theories that you might have into what's actually going on. And with Sandalphon, which is connected to earth, connected to what we are here, there's a sense of completion. This is saying that you can go through the transition with Charon. You can cross the river Styx. You can, not to death, but to the new you. And you can survive this. You can do it. You can complete this. You don't need to be afraid that you are going to get caught in the forest and not get to see your grandmother, sort of thing, like Red Riding Hood. All right, let's have a look at some colour goddess support for you as well. We've got Plum, which is about choices, decisions, and options. Yeah, it is. For you, it is that, like many people dealing with this sort of stuff, as I say, would be kind of very much go into your heart, turn your mind off, like, blah, blah, blah. But that's not going to work for you. You do need to convince your mind. You need to know you have choice. You need to know that you have the license to do what you think is the right thing to do. That's important. That's the way that you deal with the sort of fears, by actually making the right choices, getting the right information and so forth. And then we also have Lime, collaboration, cooperation and groups. So once you've done that, you'll find others like you. You'll come out with the Hermit reversed from being behind the scenes and being alone, and you'll start to connect more with other people. And so there is a kind of a general who can I trust energy about this in love and in other things. But once you really start to make those choices and you feel you have that sovereignty, you'll feel more capacity to connect with others. So we did have synchronicity. So let's have a look at what sign Spirit would send to you to show that you're starting to really go through this transformation and break the programming that was potentially limiting you. Pole 3. Lovers. This came up for others, and this is all about love. This came up for one of the others, so some of you may have come to more than one reading. I think for some of you it will be a new love coming in, or a reigniting of a love, or a balancing out of a love, whatever is necessary with this sort of patterning around you. You may also see lovers with synchronicities. You may see people walking along the street hand in hand. You may see romantic movies popping up all the time in your Netflix. There's something about that as a synchronicity, and there probably is a synchronicity that Spirit is saying here. If you have been alone, and I think some of you may have been, then someone is coming into your life at the right time, the synchronistic time, for you to be able to put into practice what you've learned about yourself and allow that love in. So therefore, unfreeze the heart if you resonate to that. Okay, so we're going to finish off with some astrology and then the astro chakra cards. So just firstly, what astrology energy is around you for this transformation and this freeing from programming. Square, so we'll look at the planets for that. Mercury, yeah, the mind. It's the mind, the communication, what makes sense philosophically. The moon, and the mind helps you work out what you want in the moon, where you can't see everything or where the emotions are at high orb. And then we have third quarter, the release, out with the old and in with the new. So it's definitely saying that you're going to shift this energy by connecting your mind to deal with what the shadows are and also what your heart wants. But there is an aspect of dynamic tension. So let's see what planets we're talking about here. Neptune, which is your ideals and so forth, and where you maybe feel that you don't see the truth. And the sun, where you have light shining on things. So I actually think we're almost getting a square between both of these, a square between Mercury and the moon. So balancing your mind and your emotions and what you don't see in a dynamic tension to move this forward. And then we also have clarifying what your life path is against what your ideals are with Neptune. And by the sun and the moon also, I feel almost like it's saying the sun and the moon are conjunct, and that is an alchemical divine union type of thing. So for some of you, I think that is being indicated. Okay, so to finish up, we'll just pull 3 astro chakra cards, excuse me, to see how to synthesize the message for you. Root chakra, that doesn't surprise me. With the kind of fear energy that you need to break through, that would make sense. Love, yes, this is about love. Yes, this is about love. Okay, so we have the root chakra, as I say, what is really basic to you, what makes you feel safe in the world. Jupiter is there, so that does say there's a benefic influence. Things are not as scary as you think they are, and you can bring in abundance through this once you understand that. Once you break this programming that says the unknown is scary and relationships are scary and all that kind of thing, you can bring in abundance. And then this is like having Mercury and Neptune conjunct. So maybe that's also operating here in the heart chakra. So self-acceptance and being able to communicate that with forgiveness. So yeah, there's something, you've seen something, you've been in a relationship. It could be a relationship you're in at the moment that pushes and pulls, as many divine unions tend to do, and that kind of thing. But there is a capacity to communicate, to clarify, using your mind, because your mind is important here, but helping you understand what your ideals are and what you want, and to move into something that is more fulfilling and safe, makes you feel safe and makes you feel loved. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 3. I hope it was helpful. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So this is the fairy tale oracle card that brought you to the reading, and the second fairy tale that will help us work out some of the programming that we're looking at here. We have some Greek mythology, some astrology, and some other spiritual cards to also help with unlocking what is the programming. You guys are deep. And I've got to say, I think that most of you, this programming is operating in a way around power and understanding the truth of things. And it's an interesting combination of understanding your own sort of communication skill and perspicacity of mind, and kind of like beauty of music and harmony and so forth, in a realm or realms where things are not always what they seem, and where there are prices to be paid when you know what's going on, and yet there's also a call to arms when you know what's going on. Because the two cards here, so Blue brought you here, and I would imagine most of you are aware of the story of Bluebeard, which is about the woman who marries the rich man who apparently gives her everything, but says there's one room she can never go into. And of course, when she eventually, her curiosity gets the better of her and she goes in there, she finds that all the former wives that he'd had broken this rule as well too and were killed. So he's basically a serial killer. So that is all about what, there is something here with taboos and what you can and can't do, where I feel as though you have a sense that there's always something under the surface. And to some degree, I think this is, while it is programming and it is a default thing for you to expect that, particularly when you're dealing with power and where people appear to be too good to be true, there is some truth in that, but there is also, of course, the capacity to feel overwhelmed by that, you know, and to have the sort of outcome of the Bluebeard story. Whereas this story, What Came of Picking Flowers, is about 3 daughters, each of whom pick flowers that they shouldn't pick, and so they're sort of enchanted and taken away. And it's the ingenuity of the family that find out the secrets of this and bring them back and can do what seems almost impossible. So the dual message here around programming that needs to be broken for you, and which I think you will break, is that you don't have to be overwhelmed by secrets. With Crusoe here as well too. You don't have to feel at their mercy. There is always a way. And here with Oblivion, this is also feeling like, you know, a bit lost or in a situation that is a bit daunting, but being able to open your arms and yourself to your own ingenuity and to the magic that can help you. Because you've got the spirit of a warrior. You really do have the scent on the wind of what is corrupt or wrong in the world. And you definitely have the communication ability to bring better harmony and so forth. But you need to break this programming that to go into the belly of the beast and see the secrets is going to mean you're overwhelmed, to understand that you have the capacity to deal with this. Orpheus also, it's about faith as well, faith in yourself. Because Orpheus and Eurydice, Orpheus was a musician, and his wife Eurydice was entrapped in Hades, and he was told that he could lead her out with the music, but he had to have faith that she would follow. If he turned around and looked at her, she would be lost forever. And unfortunately, in the mythology, he did turn around, and as such, in a moment of lacking faith, he lost his love. So it's a great tragedy. That's not saying you're going to have a tragedy. It's just saying that there is something here, there is some programming where you feel that there is almost waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the trick in the bargain, waiting for the cost of something, and feeling at that moment that you could be overwhelmed. That's what you need to break, because in fact this programming, and it's a helpful programming, does suggest there is a way, even if it is working with others potentially, because it's others who help to free the girls. that may be part of this, that kind of understanding that by having the right connections and using, Mercury in the third house, when Mercury belongs in the third house, there's sort of communication skill and so forth. To have a cause and to find the others with the cause may be the way that you best break through this. But there's definitely a sense for me, for people here, that you've got a big cause and you've got to be prepared to go into the dark to do with it, but you equally have to believe in yourself and connect with others and have faith. Don't use your music and your communication skills to your benefit. Don't falter at the last moment feeling that you can't do this, because you actually can. You're more capable of it than most. So let's have a look at what else we had under Bluebeard. So this is 3 different oracles that have different successful or creative people from history. It could be modern day world, it could be sort of more ancient history and so forth. And the first card is to represent energy after you've transformed and dealt with this programming around love. The second card is around creativity, and the third card is around your career. So around love, we have Mary Shelley. Oh, there you are. You definitely, I reckon you probably like a good horror novel or a good gothic novel. You're really in tune with all of that. Freddie Mercury, great sort of individual, very musical, and able to use that to sort of look at both the depths and the heights and do what was different in the world and so forth. And Ayn Rand, or Ayn Rand, the great individualist. So there is something about being a great individualist in this, but you do need to connect with others. This is part of it, because of this programming where at the 12th hour you could feel you could lose faith. You need the others around you, but you have to balance that with the fact that you are a great individualist. That's Ayn Rand's whole philosophy, was around the power of the individual. And you do have a lot of power. You are more powerful than most people, but I think because of this programming, there is a sort of need to connect with others. Freddie Mercury often talked about feeling very alone, so it's not letting yourself be isolated or being alone, and using your music and your talent to connect with others. Mary Shelley was able to look into the darkness, and so for some of you, this may connect to love as well. Like Bluebeard was a story of marriage, so there could well be for some of you that you are drawn to the darker side of love. And I'm not saying that in a really evil way. I'm just saying it in, you'd be more likely to like Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights than Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice, for instance. And that's okay, because again, you actually have the very scorpionic energy here, very strong capacity to deal with that, and that's okay. But I think, again, there is a sense, if you think about Mary Shelley's main character that she wrote, which was Frankenstein's monster, he was very different and on his own and isolated. So there's something in here about not isolating yourself because of the worry about, getting into those depths as well. There will be people that help you. You can connect to the right people because you'll have a cause. Okay, so let's use the tarot now. Let's first of all use Lunar Dark Angel Tarot to look at what else Spirit wants to say about this sort of shadow programming that you're dealing with, and then we'll use the Light Angel to look at what you can emerge from this deprogramming as. So firstly, what else does Spirit want to tell us about this? Okay, for a start, they're all reversed, and I riffle, shuffle, and do all this sort of thing. So when that happens, I always think it's quite significant if they either all come out upright or all reversed. This certainly does to me. Reversed firstly tells me about suppression of certain energies and so forth. So there is a kind of suppression of some of this capacity to go into the darkness and look at it. There is, you want to be the warrior, but you're suppressing some of that energy because you're not sure if you can really see it through. Some of this came from childhood programming, definitely. With the Six of Cups reversed, there is something here that you need to let go of that you saw in childhood or that you believed in childhood about, what is safe and what isn't safe and so forth. Many of you suppress very strong psychic abilities. I think many of you are very, very psychic, actually. But you don't necessarily feel comfortable with that as well, too. You would be shamanic, you would be able to go into the shadow, you would be able to go into the underworld, you're very Persephone-like, but at the moment you're not allowing yourself to do that. And you don't want to touch, you don't want to go into the depths and come across the devil, basically. You don't want to marry Bluebeard. And that makes a lot of sense. I don't think anybody should marry Bluebeard, to be frank. But you are suppressing some of your own ability and your own magic that you could use and so forth. And therefore, you're not making the decisions about who you want to be in the world, how you want to create in the world, what action you want to take in the world. You're just caught in this sort of sense that the real warrior spirit in you, which is significant, and the really strong sort of psychic energy and the capacity to communicate, which is off the charts, you're not using it because you think that there's always going to be this price to pay. Many of you may have sort of grown up in powerful families or something like that. I just think there's something that many of you have seen that make you feel this about the world. Okay, so, or I'm getting for some of you, it might be, across social media and things like that, you've seen some pretty bad behavior and it makes you a bit gun shy. That's possible as well. So let's see with the Light Angel Tarot, what can happen when you start to have faith in yourself and know that you definitely have the skills and ability to navigate the secrets and deal with it and so forth, and that you have this warrior soul. Moon. The High Priestess, see, she's turned around. Page of Pentacles. Justice reversed. Knight of Swords. Okay, so many of you will be the warrior, social justice warrior, political warrior, legal warrior, things like that. You are going to be prepared. You are going to take head on what is wrong, what needs to be fixed up. And you will do it very sensibly. You're not going to sort of just run in and just kind of lay to waste everything. If the Knight of Swords the right way up would probably be kind of acting before thinking. You will think it through. You will be very considered using Mercury and the third house in what you say and do. That's part of your power. You're incredibly good sort of in a debate or, in a sort of argument with, like you could talk to journalists about things and be very, very good at that. You could get up and present what you're doing to people very, very well. And it's going to have something to do with your business, I think, or how you make money. You will, that capacity is going to help you with that. Very, very psychic again. You're much more in touch with your psychic ability, much more in touch with the Moon and the High Priestess. You really come into that. You understand how you see things, and it's beyond just the intellect, though your intellect's really sharp. You really do intuitively get things. You uncover stuff. You are going to uncover stuff in your career or just in your life or in relationships or probably some combination of all of it. But you look like you're strong enough to do that once you own your psychic ability and your capacity to really see the truth and to carefully but systematically demolish the arguments of those that would fool or trick in some way. So the world needs people like you, I've got to say. Let's have a look at what help Spirit might be giving you. So we're going to start with some animal totems from Australia. So some Australian animals and what they're going to support you with. Then we'll have a look at some archangel energy. But firstly, a couple of animal totems from Australia for you. So we have wombat, inner child. That came up for one of the other readings, so some of you may be at more than one reading. Certainly there's something, you've seen this right from childhood, I think, or many of you have. And your inner child is the one that sort of thinks, oh, there's secrets here, things aren't what they appear. But I think wombat will heal some of that so that you feel more confident. And we also have got Tasmanian devil. Fighter, yeah, you are a fighter and you are going to be a fighter, and the Tasmanian devil is going to help you. And I'm actually getting that in some cases this is a Tasmanian devil turning that around, coming into it, into your actual capacity to liberate others and fight for what is right. And they're ferocious little beasts. They're beautiful, but they're ferocious little beasts. So you are more than a match for whatever darkness you're looking at, pile 4. Let's have a look at archangel energy around you. We have Camel, alchemy. Yeah, you are very spiritually adept. Very spiritually adept. And Metatron, yeah. Past life recall. So you're bringing in stuff from past lives. You've dealt with this before. You've been someone who could navigate a medieval court. You've been someone who maybe, did high magic or something like that. There's something like that around you with Metatron and the past life recall and bringing all of that into being. This is why the inner child saw this right from the beginning. You understood power and secrets right from the beginning. But you have the alchemy to transmute and transform it. Work very well with sort of Plutonian, retrograde Pluto energy and so forth, and bring things into balance and so forth with Camael. And with Mars, it's going to connect, I think, to your career in some way. So let's see what colour goddess energy helps you in this transformation. We've got lemon, clean, fresh and new. So yeah, you would be like a breath of fresh air in a world that is full of stuffy secrets and so forth. And your great communication skills there in particular bring that sort of essence. People would find you very revitalizing. And we have lilac, immaturity, innocence and youth. So I think this is connecting back to the inner child. I think you may help educate people. I don't think this is saying you're immature, because you're certainly not with these sort of energies. But I think that there is a sense that you will want to protect the innocent, the young and so forth, and educate them so that they can sort of navigate worlds that are sometimes more complex. So there's something there. Some of you may teach in one form or another, or have child caring type responsibilities. Okay, so now to sort of finish up, we want to firstly ask for what might be a sign, a synchronistic sign that you're on the right path. Then we're going to look at some astrology and chakra energy to close the reading out. So firstly, a sign or synchronistic thing to let pile 4 know they're on the right path. Lovers, this has come up. This is like come up maybe for 3 of the readings. So it's all about love for people in this. Some of you may meet a great love in the process of doing this, and that might be the sign that is really happening. Some may be in a relationship and something sort of shifts in that relationship and really clarifies and empowers you. That could be a sign. For others, it could be that you see lovers. You see people walking hand in hand down the street. You could sort of hear songs about lovers or read romantic books or something like that. So there's something in that will tell you that you're even though I feel for you, for the most part, this is more about political power or material power or that kind of thing. Some of you, it may be about love. It might be about sorting through a very complex love relationship. But for some reason, lovers is coming up as a very strong motif to let people know they're on the right path around this energy. It may have something to do with, you know, when Pluto connects with your Venus or something like that in your chart. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more astrology. Let's see what other astrology energy is around you for this transformation. Scorpio, yeah, you are very Scorpionic, whether you have Scorpio strongly or not. Fire, 11th house, Aquarius. So yeah, you're a mix of the depth psychology, the deep emotions, all of that sort of stuff, going into the darkness that Scorpio can do, the intensity of all of that, with the transpersonal I have a cause of Aquarius. Formidable combination, that too, because Aquarius gives the detachment, the mental sort of mercurial sort of intellectual ability, the big picture thinking. Scorpio goes to the depths. You guys are something to be reckoned with, I've got to say. A lot of fire, a lot of passion for what you do, and very connected with others. Social networks, social media, all of those sort of things are going to be very important for this, getting your message out and so forth. This is why communication is so strong. And you need that sort of passion of what you're doing. But wow, you guys are a powerhouse, I have to say. All right, so let's finish off with some Astro Chakra cards just to synthesize the energy for you. Power, yeah, powerhouse. That's what you are. So that's the solar plexus chakra, the sacral chakra, and then the crown chakra. So the past life recall, the Metatron connection, the alchemy, the psychic stuff, very, very strong. Who you are in the world, solar plexus, the power you have, your Uranus there, individuality. So you are a nonconformist. That's partly why you're the fighter. You're not going to put up with this rubbish when you see secrets and hypocrisy and so forth. You're going to have a point of view about it. And part of your creativity will be to bring like beauty and passion and music maybe into how you can express yourself and express what you're seeing. Some of you may in fact not literally go into say politics, but you might do something like music and actually sing about things that have those sorts of themes. That's a possibility as well. Whatever you do, you're very spiritually connected, and it connects back to your fire energy and to what you're doing in the world with Mars there. And you will have accomplishment out of this. You will win. I mean, that's part of the messaging of that original second fairy story, which is in the end, even if it seemed impossible, the girls were all all brought back from the enchantment. You know, it is possible. This is the message. You may worry that you could be overwhelmed by the secrets and the issues that you see, but all is possible because you have what you need to do it. So I hope that that encourages you, because I think that there's a lot that you can do in the world that's going to be really helpful to others. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.